Everyone has a favorite brand of model locomotive, but how many of you asked yourself what your favorite brand of car is? Cars are something super important to the model railroad world, yet we seem to never want to talk about them. Well, I have 4 cars from different brands right here, and 4 brands being Athearn, Atlas, Bachmann, and Walthers. It was originally going to be all boxcars, but I couldn't find an Atlas or Bachmann 40-foot boxcar in the time frame of writing, so I'm going to try to judge all these cars equally by their own merits. These cars are currently all in production or have ended production within the last few years. I bought all of these cars brand new, and we're going to start with the cheapest car and move up to the most expensive car. The cheapest car here is this Walthers mainline 40-foot AAR modernized boxcar. It's a model of a post-war era boxcar that would have been modified to fit within modern standards sometime in the 70s or 80s. I cannot find any specific prototype that this car is based off of, but it's a pretty believable car even if it never existed. This is honestly a pretty good looking tooling. It's nothing complex, but it certainly gets the general look of the boxcars of the era correct. I know the livery I chose is kind of funny, but all the prints on here look incredibly good, and the necessary info is exactly where it should be and very legible. The doors are molded on, unfortunately, and do not open and close. The car surprisingly boasts a decent amount of molded underframe brake detail that actually looks quite good when on the rails. It also has some very free rolling metal wheels with plastic axles. The car comes equipped with Walthers Protomax metal couplers. These are the same couplers that came equipped on old lifelike Proto 2000 locomotives, and in my experience they are incredibly reliable. The NMRA suggests a 40-foot car should be weighed at 3.75 ounces, and this car comes in at around 3.7 ounces, so my scale does not go to 2 decimal places, but it's a good looking car and it performs even better. Next up is the 40-foot AAR boxcar from Athearn, and you have definitely seen one of these before. Athearn has offered a 40-foot boxcar for many years now, with the earliest examples dating back to the late 1940s when these cars were still being built for the real railroads. This example is derived from the Blue Box era tooling with a couple subtle changes to make it look a bit better in some areas, although I'd argue it's actually worse in some as well, mainly with the grab irons and the loss of the opening door. The decor on this car is stellar, much like any other Athearn product I've owned. There's minimal brake detail on the underside of this car, although on the track it's not super noticeable. The car comes with metal wheels on metal axles, and I should add that the trucks look very good with the brake shoes on the wheels. Now, the worst part of these cars is hands down the couplers on it. This car is equipped with Athearn's in-house McHenry couplers. They do look good admittedly, but these are probably the worst couplers you could buy. They tend to not couple automatically, they don't like coupling with other couplers, and they tend to automatically release under stress, a common issue with plastic couplers. This car weighs in at 3.5 ounces, coming short of the NMRA suggestion, but that is a suggestion. Other than the couplers, these cars may have aged, but these are still fine cars that track quite well. So here's the newest tooling here. This is the 50-foot Bachmann Express Reefer, supposedly based upon a New York Central prototype converted from a milk car built in the 1920s. These cars would have been coupled to express passenger trains to transport perishables at express speeds. Bachmann's version of the car looks very good, even with almost all the detail being molded. The raised roof walk looks especially good, especially since you can see through the slats. Bachmann has always had stellar paint decor, and this car continues that trend, especially for a wooden car that's naturally going to be harder to decorate due to the texture on the sides. There's a lot of molded underside brake and air detail on this car, which I found interesting and quite above and beyond for a car with a fish belly style frame where you're almost never going to see this on the track. All of Bachmann's cars now come with metal wheels on metal axles, and these cars roll incredibly smoothly. It would also be a disservice to not mention the really good-looking heavyweight style trucks on this car, which to my knowledge were tooled specifically for this car and this car only. These are not found on Bachmann's heavyweights. This car has Bachmann's in-house EasyMake Mark II couplers on it, which are plastic. They are the best plastic couplers on the market, but that's not really saying much. They're no KD metal coupler. They operate reliably, I'd say 95% of the time, but that's not all of the time, unfortunately. The car feels heavy in the hands, and on the scale, it tips in at 4.7 ounces, making it not only the heaviest car here, but it weighs more than the NMRA recommended 4.5 ounces for a 50-foot car. The car is not perfect, thanks couplers, but it's another very solid hit from Bachmann, who seem to be on a winning streak recently. Keep it up. Here's the last car I have here, and it's the most expensive one here. This is the Atlas NE6 Caboose from their Master line. First things first, this is a very good looking model. The detail on the Caboose body is superb. The amount of separately applied pieces on there, with the air hose being my favorite. The textures on the roof walk and the end platforms just add to the appeal of this car. The final touch of once again stellar print decoration just elevates the whole car to a whole new level. It should be added that there is no interior to this Caboose, but for a $35 Caboose, this is more than acceptable. The underside brake detail on this car is quite good and complete, especially for a car that has this many pieces under it. This car rides on metal wheels on plastic axles, although I feel the truck detail on this car is quite poor. No brake shoes, the leaf springs just kind of jut out the sides, and I very much want to replace these sometime. This is not the best rolling car either, it's probably the worst rolling of the whole group. This Caboose is the only car here to not use an in-house coupler design. This car uses AccuRail's AccuMate couplers, and these plastic couplers aren't great. They'll couple with other brands just fine, but they do have a tendency to stay open after shoving the car. Not to mention, this is just not how couplers work. This car weighs in at 3.1 ounces, slightly heavier than the NMRA recommended 3 ounces, and it looks really good from the trucks up. Although the trucks and couplers could use some work, these are stellar cars, and I highly recommend them. Okay, so what's the point of this? These aren't all trying to model the same car. Well, we can learn a lot from different car types from different manufacturers because we can see each brand's strong points and their weak points. From what I am seeing here and based upon prices all taken from the same website, here's how I'd rank these cars personally. This is by no means indicative of an entire brand's catalog of rail cars, but a lot of these features these cars have are going to be shared between cars from the same manufacturer. In fourth and last place, it's the Athearn car. They say a true classic never goes out of style, and sure, this is a car that still looks good, but it's a car that seemingly every other manufacturer offers for cheaper, and they look indistinguishable from the Athearn. Every other brand here offers a 40-foot boxcar in the AAR style. These cars usually go for around $30 when not on sale, and there's zero reason to buy this over another manufacturer's version of the 40-foot boxcar, especially with these garbage couplers Athearn insists on using. In third place, it's the Walthers mainline boxcar. This is one of the cars that I feel makes the Athearn car feel poor. Side by side, these cars are incredibly similar, but the lower price of the Walthers car combined with the underside detail and the metal couplers puts this car far above the Athearn one for me. I also do not know how to articulate it, but this Walthers car feels less cheap in the hands. Well done to Walthers here. Third place is not bad here. You can get these for around $26 to $30 depending on the livery, and I feel the value here is alright. In second place, it's the longest car here, it's the Bachmann Reefer. This is a car where it feels like you very much get what you pay for. Emphasis on the feel, this is the best feeling car here in the hands, and it's very weighty. It's a great looking car with printing on par with the best of the industry. Only issue I have with this car here is the plastic couplers. While better than the Athearn couplers, they tend to wear much quicker and break when put at the front of long trains. Get them replaced with KDs. Anyone who wants an Express Reefer will be happy with this car, and I'm very impressed with the value for money on this $30 car here. And of course, there was no contest for the winner here. This Caboose is the best car here. The stellar detail all over the car was going to win at the top spot no matter what. Main issues here are those weird couplers and the trucks. The trucks don't look particularly good, and this is definitely the worst roller of the bunch here. Still, it was an easy win for this car. It has such good detail, and I crown it the best here overall. I'm curious what everyone's favorite freight car manufacturers are. Is there a manufacturer you feel everyone overlooks? A car everyone overlooks? What's your favorite freight car you own? Start some fights down below, and as always, stay unruly.